Everyone had and played the original Wii, at least for its pack-in title. As for the rest of the games, well, they kinda went overlooked. I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we look at some hidden gems for the Wii that you probably missed. Maybe.
Second Opinion Games.
All-Star Karate was a budget game which now can be pulled out of the bargain bin for down to $1 depending on where you find it at. It's similar to Just Dance, as you have to use the motion controls of the Wiimote and Nunchuck to mimic your punches and your kicks. Kicks obviously don't work that well with the Wiimote and Nunchuck, so instead you just have to hold down a button and then move your fists outward. And then you'll punch some ninjas or just flail about mindlessly. And there's even some mini games here too. There's also some competent voice acting, which gets a little funny depending on how you name your character, and I'm not really that good at rhythm-based games, so I'm probably not one to talk about if this one was any good whatsoever. But there is something here for me to enjoy, at least for about 5 or 6 minutes. Definitely worth that $1 I paid. Dewies Adventure put the Wiimote to a little bit better use. You hold it sideways like a traditional NES controller, and you tilt the entire world similar to what happens in Super Monkey Ball. Dewey himself just slips all over because he's just a drop of water, and at any point in time you can change the environment to ice or heat it up, turning Dewey into steam and maybe even showering down some lightning bolts on your enemies. And this is a very kiddie game, so it never gets too difficult. Some of the puzzles do involve that environment change that you have to do, and you have to collect these really cute things. You can tell they put a lot of hard work into what should be a normal throwaway title. The music might be a little bit too cutesy for me at times, but I could definitely sit down and play this any day. The Blob 2 was another cutesy character for the Wii. Now, the first The Blob game was fine in its own right, but they just improved everything with the second one. Painting the world has never been so much fun. There's a bunch of 2D levels here, lots of puzzles to solve in this epic collectathon. And if you wondered where they got the idea for Splatoon from, you better believe it was this very game. Not that they would ever say it out in the open, because then they would have to pay some royalty checks to whoever the heck made this fine game, and Nintendo is definitely happy to have this on their original Wii. It seems to really stand out because at the time, original Xbox and PS3 games were going for that dark, ugly, muddy look, and this was so bright and colorful, it was a great change of pace from that, and it kinda cheered up my mood every single time I played it. Elebitz is a game that I could only describe as a light gun game for kids because they cutesyified the crap out of this one. There's these little thing called Elebitz, and they supply electricity for your home. So in order to turn on the TV, you have to use this blaster gun to kill a whole lot of Elebitz. Well, I guess you're just capturing them and using them as slaves to power all of your machines around the house. But what the game really does right is slowly introduces more mechanics as you play. You have to collect so many Elebitz in order to turn on different things. When you do so, well, then they will turn on and shoot out more Elebitz, making the whole thing just addictive as all heck. It's also really interesting to see how messy you can make a room. It starts off looking really clean and well kept, and your kid is left home alone, by the way, because your parents are out, and then by the time the level's over, everything is just a complete mess. Meaning when these parents come home, they are gonna be really ticked off about what happened in here, and that's probably the most fun part of the entire game. Just imagining this setup and how the parents will react at the end of it. And does it ever pay off? Well, I don't know. I never actually finished the game, but you better believe I have a really fun time with it, trying to get to that ending. Maybe one day I'll have enough time to finish it, but for now I have to keep moving on. Dream Pinball is one of the more interesting pinball games I ever played, and I played a lot of digital pinball games. Now, one of the things that I always thought really make or break a game, other than the tables themselves being interesting with lots of stuff to do, is sound effects and voice sampling. And this game definitely has all of that. Now, what it doesn't do right is the fact that you move around with the ball, so you never get a full glimpse of the table by itself, and you can't seem to change this in the options at all. But it does make it probably more playable because of how much stuff is really going on. I like how in certain times the ball can be triggered with different effects, showing some like blood or something on the screen. And there's quite a few tables here too, whether it's monsters or helicopters and even an aqua flipper theme. I'm not even sure what's going on here. And yes, even dinosaurs, because all kids love dinosaurs. But I can't imagine this game was made for kids, because I don't think they're really that into digital pinball like us old fogies. If this one looks fun to you, well, give it a try because it can be picked up really cheap. A game that also has dinosaurs is Jurassic The Hunted. Now, when I looked at the back of the box on this one, what I thought I was getting was a third-person on-rail shooter blowing away some dinosaurs. What I ended up getting was a first-person shooter for the Wii that you could entirely move freely about. And the Wii wasn't really good at doing this, and aiming is really darn difficult. What it did right was the fact that it actually has dinosaurs, and the game is found super cheap again. So if you happen to be able to control the Wii and hold it just right, you could probably find some enjoyment with this game. For everyone else, you're probably dinosaur food, but it's definitely worth a try. A game that I knew exactly what I was picking up was Gunblade and LA Machine Guns, because I grew up in the arcades with the huge light guns, and Gunblade was one of my all-time favorites. You would use his giant machine gun and sit in a helicopter and mow down robots like you were freaking killing the Terminators themselves. The graphical style here is something that I really love. LA Machine Gun still keeps the same graphical style, but cleans it up just a tiny bit. Let's face it, if it was any more beautiful, I wouldn't like it nearly as much, because I really like the jaggy polygon look and the fact that it just feels like a Sega arcade machine from back in the day, and it is a definite one-to-one conversion of the arcade, and that's why I really love this game. A lot of people I hear take a total dump on it because they don't like the graphics, but they don't understand what makes a fun light gun shooter game really work, and that's the fact that it's over-the-top arcade feel, and it really has it in spades. Blazing Angels is another high-flying adventure. Sure, the game looks all dark and gloomy, and it uses motion controls, this time the nunchuck to steer your ship back and forth. You have to wave it all around. Now, the analog stick on the nunchuck actually works as your throttle, so you can give it a lot of speed or decrease until you nearly stall out. And the controls are just cumbersome enough to make it feel like you're in a real dogfight, but not enough to make it overly frustrating. Also, it has a terrific storyline, and the script is really well fleshed out, with a lot of chatter back and forth as you blow away those evil enemies. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat was a game I recently picked up for my Wii because I already owned it for the original GameCube, and I didn't want all that extra waggle in my GameCube game. However, this seems to be the one case where they made less motion involved with playing the game, because with the GameCube you had to use those funny bongos that really started hurting your hands, and on the Wii, you actually just use the analog stick to move back and forth and to jump and whatnot, and it actually makes it less annoying to play. But because I'm so used to playing on the GameCube, I can't quite figure out the controls. My brain is hardwired to use those stupid bongos now, which is a shame because I really love this game. So if you never picked up the bongos, then definitely pick up this one because it is freaking terrific. And it's also just beautiful and full of personality. Every ounce of Nintendo creativity really went into this game, and it really shines here. Super Mario Bros. 3 Plus is a game that you could only play if you homebrew your system, of course, and it's a recreation of Super Mario Bros. 3 with the newer Super Mario Bros. Game style. Now, they don't have all of the power-ups that Super Mario Bros. 3 had because the developer really didn't know how to use the Wii to its fullest potential and to add those extra power-ups in. But what they did do is get really creative trying to recreate all of the Super Mario Bros. 3 levels in the best way they possibly could. Because the levels are much shorter and how familiar I am with the gameplay, and it just ends up being a darn good time. Also, I like to see all the little changes they made and how they reworked the environments to fit in the new art style. Mario Kart was one of the biggest sellers for the Wii, and because Nintendo only puts out one new Mario Kart game every, 5 to 10 years or so, it's up to the users to make their own game when Nintendo just isn't doing it. So I'm playing Mario Kart CT GP Revolution. Revolution being the code name for what the Wii then became. And this is a game that you could only play if you mod your Wii. It has the entire full Wii game here, plus a ton more levels, and trying to race in a new map that I've never played before with the controls that I'm very familiar with and trying to come in first place is a whole new challenge that I did not expect. This ends up being one of the very best times I ever had with a homebrew title, and man, if you're used to playing and loving your Wii, you are not going to be disappointed with this one. Okay, enough of the modded games. And also, let's find that game out there that was hidden for really dumb reasons. The fact that the Wii itself is really not that capable of a machine compared to the Xbox 360 and the PS3 that it was competing with. In steps Need for Speed The Run. Now, this is a completely different game from the PS3 and the Xbox 360, which means the graphics have been toned down dramatically. Also, if you really hate those waggle and motion controls, you could always plug in a GameCube or a classic controller and play that way, which is my preferred way of playing the game. Also, if you're not super big into the Wii, you could always pick up this same game on the 3DS, and this story is actually better than the PlayStation and the 360 version story. It's much more streamlined. The art style is a lot cooler, I think, too, on top of it. And the game just feels like it's arcade freaking awesome. It's not nearly as difficult as the other versions, which means you're going to be progressing through the game much quicker and replaying levels far less. And this really helps the pacing of the game, making it probably the best game that was completely overlooked for the Wii. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it, and there's a few more Wii games that I want to talk about that I'm saving for another day. So if I didn't bring up your favorite Wii title, please let me know in the comments down below. And if I didn't shove it in one of my many other Wii videos, well then I'll talk about it then. So until later, I will see you again, guys.
God, I'm gonna be late to meet the guys. What the? They look like ninjas! They headed down this alley. Are you okay? You were lucky I came along.